Now there's beating someone at chess and then there's dominating them from start to finish, which is what Hans Niemann does in this game against Hikaru Nakamura. It was played in the Arena Kings in January 24. It's 3-minute chess. Hans opens with e4, a modern defense from Hikaru, and boy will he be regretting that one. Watch how Hans takes the center and proceeds to squash Hikaru. Bishop g7, knight c3 played, a6 looking for some b5 action, and so a4 clamps down on the b5 square. Hikaru has to go b6 instead. Bishop e3 looking for a battery with the queen, you'll see what I mean. And now bishop b7, the black bishops crossing swords, a wonderful sight on the chessboard but not advised in church. Now g3, Hans prepares to meet fire with fire along the long diagonal here. So d6 from Hikaru, looking for the thematic dark squared pawn breaks in future. Bishop g2, knight d7, knight g to e2, and this is leaving the way free for the f pawn to run. The center under white's control. e6 now from Hikaru, a kind of hippopotamus pawn structure for those familiar with that black defense. And after castles, we get more hippo type maneuvering with knight e7, and if only Hikaru had time to insert h6, he'd have the full symmetry of pieces and pawns. Unlock coffee for two with Garry Kasparov. That's what you get, but he just misses out. After queen d2, he now castles, doesn't achieve the goal, and bishop h6. Hans softening up those dark squares in the position. Now c5 looks really natural to my eyes. I mean, you run it with the engine and it talks about c6, d5, e5. It's a minefield. It's difficult to play for black without the space. Hikaru goes e5. Hans swaps off the bishops. King recaptures. And now rook a d1 does horrible pressure down this d file already. Takes his best here, but instead knight c6. The washing machine's whirring up, really distracting me. Sounds like the house is about to collapse, and this is now a problem because Hans, he could take on e5 already, but goes f4. Hikaru takes here. A pair of minor pieces come off the board, which is usually a good thing for the side with the less space. You've got less room to maneuver, right? But after this king goes back, now there's a great attacking move for white. It just turns the screw in a horrible way. Test your positional skills here, attacking ideas. What's the best move? Well, well done if you found pawn to e5. It is the best because you open up these bishops, they exchange off, natural, but now you can't take here because there's a pin. You pick up this knight if you do so. So that's why the knight jumps into c5, but simply captures. What a horrendous pawn structure. You could have taken with the queen there, but all of it no fun, and now this is classy. Why doesn't Hans take the d6 pawn, take the material on offer? Well, yes, you're still winning, but you do open some lines of counterattack for black. Instead, knight d5 is just such a more powerful move. This is grandmaster play because you're threatening this huge fork. d6 is perennially weak anyway, take it at your leisure, and after f5, forced to help cover this square, well, now you can just turn up the heat with rook f to e1. Knight e7 check, a huge threat. The king then driven out to f7, knight c6 comes, the rook invades. It's really, really bad. So that's why we see knight to e4. It does ditch this pawn, but you block the e-file. But Hans picks up the material offered by Hikaru. The rook in the corner hit. It slides to b8. a5 cements the knight. It's absolute positional torture. This is why the top guys don't usually play the modern and that sort of thing, unless your name's Magnus Carlsen. He plays what he wants. I'll link one of his games at the end. So we see queen c7, always connect your rooks, and now let me scroll down the moves, and c4 from Hans Niemann, supported by this absolutely rock solid stalwart of a knight. So queen c5, Hikaru Hikaru meekly offering a queen exchange, going for the battle in the endgame. Here it's obliged to, because now Hans invades. He uses the d5 square. Pawn pressured. Now we see rook fe8. Hikaru, desperate for counterplay, prepares to double his rooks, brings in the king first. Rook e d1, the d file under Hans's control, so Hikaru goes for the e file. Rook d7, just trading down. Never a bad policy, usually speaking, when you're ahead on material. We see takes with check. Rook recaptures, and now rook d7, d8 rather, not to d7, offering an exchange. Instead, going after this weak pawn. So knight f6 back, opens the rook to invade. Rook a8 coming for that a6 target, and Hikaru checks. He's got some counterplay, but this move is strange. You know, rook e3 looks natural, or rook b2. Target these pawns here, but instead rook a2 played, attacks a pawn, but it's one that's about to be defended. So it's a strange move. We get the check, the king moves, the pawn drops, setting up discovered ideas. Knight e4 now played. There's no discovery just yet to win this rook. Hans now plays knight d5 check. What an outpost that is. It returns to the square where it first hopped forward, started doing the damage. The king retreats to f7 to stay with this pawn. Now we see a check. King e6 and the a pawn starts running. This is ominous, but Hikaru's rook is very well placed. That's where you want a rook, behind a passed pawn, not clumsily in front of it. What can Niemann do? Because he's just lost the pawn as well. He's now just got the one pawn ahead. Well, first there's a check from Hikaru. King d2, another check, king c2, and now the best move here for Hikaru is g5. Look to generate a passed pawn in one way or another, but still white's doing better. However, knight f6 played, looking for a trade. Does Hans oblige? Well, no. Then you've got some problems kind of extricating the rook and not losing the pawn. So instead we see check. King d6, knight b5 check, king c6. Hang on, are you not activating Hikaru here? Well, this is a killer move. You attack the undefended knight, so it's got to save itself, and then you push a7, supported by this absolute star of the show. What to do? King b6 comes, coming next to the pawn, but it can't yet be taken. Hans goes here, preparing to make a baby girl, and it forces Hikaru to give up the exchange for a knight and a pawn. He's now losing really badly. The pawn attacked. He goes for counterplay with the knight, but this is hopeless. h4, knight h3, the pawn attacked. Now it hits the rook after taking the pawn, but we see resignation from Hikaru. Down on the clock, down on the board, he doesn't want to play it out. Why not? Well, rook g5 and it's just GG's. Say you go knight e6, there's rook takes here, h-pawn's running, king's miles away. There just isn't really a sniff of counterplay at this level of chess. Hans takes down Hikaru. This the final position in the arena kings here. After knight takes on f4, what a demolition job. And if you enjoyed this game, then have a look at the one on screen. It's Magnus Carlsen playing opening trash, and yet somehow he knows how to get away with it.